Welcome to the channel for the first time viewers. Welcome back from my existing subscribers. Today, I'm going to be helping a friend of mine's brother with a PC parts list. But as this video, I figured I could, kind of kill two birds with one stone, give him this parts list that I kind of put together for him based off of what he told me, and just give some advice if you're building a PC over time. So let's go ahead. I'm going to color code this. Red, yellow, green. Green means it's okay to buy right now. These are just extras down here. And essentially, you don't really have to worry about this. Like, this is just a GPU card brace, the mouse, the headset I use, stuff like that. But this is the main parts of the build. So essentially, when we look at this, you want to see where you can start piecing your PC together from the jump. So let's say, for instance, right now, the CPU, if you're not buying everything right now, then that would be one thing that we would go ahead and mark as red, right? So let's go ahead and just find a fill. Maybe orange would be better. Yeah, red. Okay, and just like the CPU, we're probably gonna mark the board red. Now, the reason you want to hold off on these are really just that if a new chip comes out, if it takes you a little bit longer than you thought it would take, then you just have that extra time. Now, the original build list I had received was 96 gigs of RAM, but unless you're doing something really heavy, 64 gigs should be fine. But because it's just RAM, I'm gonna go ahead and mark that as green. So the RAM you could buy at any time. You don't have to wait, because if you get an Intel chip, if you switch platforms altogether, you can still use that same RAM. You might not just be able to click on Expo, but you didn't waste your money. Drives, those are completely fine to get, right? Now, prices on drives fluctuate wildly. I remember 2 terabytes was like $100 before. But now, with Gen 5 being out, Gen 4 is kind of dropped in price. Gen 3 is kind of been just taken out the market. GPU, we're going to mark as yellow. That's going to be closer to one of the last things you want to buy. Mainly because if a new lineup of GPU comes out, it's less likely because if you have one, you're all set. But definitely I would buy a GPU before I bought the CPU and the motherboard. Because again, those will probably just sit there. AM5 has more legs to it, but let's say, perfect example, you buy a 14900K, right? And you're building this thing out as you have some extra money and you buy a GPU as well, right? So you've spent what, $1,500 already, and now the same 1,500 could have got you 4090 performance next generation, because let's say Nvidia drops the 5080 in October or November, right? You would have been able to just spend the same amount of money. Theoretically, it could be more, it could be less. Doubt it'll be less, but just play along for now. But you could spend the same amount of money and get more performance later. Same with the board, right? If you were on that same Intel example I just gave you, you actually could not get the 15th gen. You're outside of your return period, and that kind of sucks. So you're just gonna be bottlenecked most likely in certain games. In other situations, if you're not the type of person to upgrade all the time, it really doesn't make too big a difference. But this video really is geared towards if you're building over time, where to start, what to buy, and kind of what position they should be in. Case fans. Now, if you've already decided on your case, it's completely okay to get your case fans, get your case, because for the most part, unless you get something specific like a ITX type of case, it's going to be standardized, right? So we're going to go ahead and mark these green. So the case fans, that, and we're definitely going to need a jump drive. Now, what I found is that USB, which green was I using? Okay, here we go. USB 2.0 drives work phenomenally. I've really had no issues. I had to clear my throat. I had no issues with USB 2.0. I have had issues with 3.0, 3.1, 3.2 drives between installing Windows. So these are insanely cheap. They just work. And they give you a lot less issues with that BIOS flash port as well. So that's just been my experience. I could be 100% off, but when I was having a hard time, I went through about 4 different drives, all 3.0, and went to Best Buy, got a 2.0, worked just fine. So sometimes older tech works better. The power supply. Now this, I'm going to put more on the yellow only because, typically, right, when we were talking about 3090s and all that stuff, or right before the 3090, if you had a 750, 850 watt power supply and the 2080 Ti, you had more than what you needed, right? There was really no system that was touching that. Then we had the 3090s come out, and 850 was kind of, you were pushing it. Like, you could overclock. I had an 850 watt, but again, this is more so if you're building it over time, a new generation launches. And we already know that the 4090 has a 600 watt power limit. So let's say they're just as efficient next generation, but they also can be power hungry in certain situations. And this jumps up from a 400 watt limit on some cards to, this ranges, it's like 420 or 320, I want to say, to as high as 400 with the Supreme X. But let's say 450, 500 becomes the new limit for the 5080. Well, buying this too soon would mean that you would, instead of being on the top end of the curve and be like, oh, I got plenty of power to go, you'd now be on the lower end of the curve where you're pushing it depending on the build. Now, 1,000 watts is kind of where I would go. It gives you the most flexibility, but I really like this because it gives you the 12 volt high power cable. So no mess, no adapter. You don't have to worry about that. You just go straight from, and I made a video about this, but you go straight from the power supply. There's a 600 watt port, and it goes one cable straight to the GPU, and you're pretty much rocking and rolling for all of the RTX 4000 line for now, at least, right? 5000, I'm assuming will be the same unless they backstep because of all the fires. I say all the fires, but it was like a couple of adapters that caught on fire, but really it was the adapter itself that was kind of shitty. So this cable seems to be doing it a lot better. The alternative, if you do want to, what I like about this MSI power supply, if you switch to a AMD GPU or older Nvidia GPU, maybe you're sending something back for RMA, you could take that piece out, the 12 volt high power piece, and there's an adapter that will, on one end, it will be 12 volt high power, and then it terminates to two 8-pin PCIe. So there's 600 watts that way, and then you have an additional, I want to say two. It's either one or two more PCIe slots you can hook up to. So it's just a newer PCIe 5 power supply, so it's meant to resist transients a lot better. So again, yellow, just a little closer, just in case you need to step up to a 1300 watt or go with something different, closer to the end. Now the cooler, typically I would say it's green, but with these new changes, these new sockets coming out, I would say right now I'm gonna mark this on red. Only because, again, with the sockets changing, there may be adapters that you might need to buy. And usually, so when LGA 1700, so 12th gen Intel came out, this was really hard to find the adapter. They were sold out or they were back ordered for a very long time. And so if you were to buy a brand new LGA 1700 capable cooler, then you actually got it within a week, right? Regular shipping time. And you can avoid that just by buying this a little closer, right? With your motherboard, which will also impact this compatibility. The motherboard, the CPU. So that will be one chunk I'll buy together. But right before that, I'd maybe take a look at the landscape, see how long the GPUs at the time you're getting ready to buy have been out. The new GPUs, how long have they been out? If it's been past a year, you're probably towards the end of its life cycle, where a new product might be coming out. And maybe you want to wait, see what the rumors are saying, see when the rumored time might be, and kind of go from there. But other than that, these little quick pieces, like your power supply, your case, all that stuff, the case fans, the USB drive that you're going to need regardless, that's easy. That's okay to get right away, right? So with that, hopefully this helps some of y'all that are not trying to spend, let's say, we'll just pull this together right now. I think it's like $2,800. So you're not trying to spend $2,800. Maybe you work off commission and you had a good month. You got $1,000 extra. You could start, piecing out with the green pieces. Then you have another good month, 2 months down the line. You can go ahead and just buy some of the yellow and then wrap it out and round it out with whatever the newest CPU. The best for your situation is what we'll say. This isn't necessarily the quote unquote best board. It's just a good one. And I know it'll do at least 7,200. So if somebody decides to change, and the amount of ports it has on the back is really impressive. So, all right, with that, I'm gonna cut out. Hopefully this video brought you some value. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll probably even throw a link to this in the in the comment or in the description. So if you want to go ahead and not subscribe, but support the channel, these are all affiliate links all through here. So I will catch y'all on the flip. Be easy.